That's the moment the room forgets how to breathe. Gold walls, soft music, trained smiles, and a child who walks straight through it like he owns the fire exit. The Don sets his glass down. A stiletto whispers on lacquer. In the mirror, 3 men blink like they just saw their own funeral. The kid isn't guessing. He's delivering instructions. Smile, leave. Right now. You can feel the math. 1 wrong breath and the chandeliers come down, the gas line sings, and the city pretends it never knew his name. But if he follows the note, someone else's plan collapses. Maybe a daughter's, maybe a traitor's, maybe both. So what's it going to be, Don? Stay and die clean or walk out and live messy? Either way, the night cashes every debt. Stories like this deserve to be remembered. Subscribe and share. The first thing you notice about Il Serpente d'Oro after midnight isn't the music. It's the breath held between notes. Crystal hums, cutlery whispers, chandeliers exhale heat. Beneath it all, a hush coils, the kind money breeds and danger respects. Waiters drift like trained ghosts. In that gilded aquarium sits a man who commands quiet like a tide. Don Raffaello d'Ambris holds the center stool like a throne in exile. Black suit narrow, white cuff immaculate. He drinks for ritual, not thirst, amber neat as a confession. His reflection lives in the brass rail. A sovereign who built a city of favors, name by name, grave by grave. Power doesn't boast here. It hums. Tonight the hum falters. He feels it, a weight change in the room, a subtraction. The band lets a saxophone sigh die. A server freezes. In the mirror, 3 silhouettes at a corner banquette tilt together, faces in shadow. Only their eyes move. Then the subtraction steps onto the footrest, a boy in a cobalt suit with courtroom hair and shoulders too square for childhood. His tie is perfect, his shoes shine, his gaze counts exits first. He doesn't reach for the whiskey. He reaches for Raffaello's space. A small hand slides a folded card across the lacquer. Hotel paper. Careful handwriting taught by someone who believes letters can save lives. Knuckles pale with decision. Raffaello sets his glass down. The base clicks. He unfolds the card. Smile. Leave right now. 5 words. Not a plea. A procedure. The chandeliers blur. Something slender unhooks from his cuff and kisses the counter with a metallic syllable. The stiletto he wears like other men wear wedding bands. It skates once and rests. In the mirror, the 3 silhouettes make a mistake. They breathe like men who just watched a door close. One hand drifts under a jacket. Another unfurls from a napkin, blued steel winking. The third touches a throat mic. Raffaello doesn't look at them. He studies the boy. Up close, the child isn't fragile. He's precise. The jacket fits but is borrowed, the cuff a whisper too long. A starry birthmark dots his jaw. His expression says he has been told exactly what to do and exactly when it will go wrong. Fear is present but domesticated. Who taught you to write like this? Raffaello asks. The person who sent me, the boy answers. Raffaello smiles, a small museum piece brushed clean. The silhouettes stiffen. They've studied this smile and know it means 2 things at once: acknowledgement and the beginning of a war. His right hand moves to the glass. His left, apparently idle, settles near the blade. Around them the restaurant performs. Corks sigh, a woman laughs, the maitre d' glides past. Yet the room has pivoted around a hinge no one else can see. Everything is now before the note or after it. Name, Raffaello says. The boy's throat works. Elias. The syllables scratch an old door inside the Don's skull. a door painted with the face of a friend who asked for 10 more minutes and received a bullet. He hears rain on church steps. Then he hears the phone go dead. The first gun clears leather behind him. A napkin flutters, a spoon rings. In the mirror, the closest silhouette lowers his chin, the way a man does before he puts a king to sleep. Raffaello's smile deepens. He slides the glass 2 inches left, inviting a muzzle to track the wrong line. The knife lifts from the counter. Fingers find the handle the way a pianist finds home keys in darkness. The boy's eyes are on the mirror now. He speaks the language of reflections. 3, he whispers. 2 behind, 1 by the pillar. They waited for you to sit. Everyone waits for me to sit, Raffaello says. Not like this, Elias answers. There's a van in the back lane, windows covered, a contingency inside a trap. Why warn me? Raffaello asks. The chin lifts. If you die here, everyone in that mirror dies too. The people who sent me said that wasn't the point. The child isn't bait. He's a variable introduced to complicate a simple equation. Raffaello tastes chandelier heat for impurities. He remembers another boy with a church program message and an envelope. He remembers the father crossing himself in a basement with plastic on the floor. Smile, the card advises. He does. The room adjusts to the performance it expects, and a corridor opens. His left hand taps the knife upon the lacquer like a maestro's baton. The nearest gunman, shadow with a watch too new, steps into his reflection. Raffaello pivots a mirrored tray to catch chandelier glare and throw it sideways. Light explodes. The gunman flinches. The second's muzzle lifts high, following ghost movement. The third hisses a warning 1 syllable too late. The knife moves without leaving a line in the air. Steel cracks glass. A shout detonates inside a coat. A bottle rolls, finds the floor, and shatters. Elias doesn't scream. He clamps 2 hands around the bar's edge, the way a sailor endures a first storm. Then the emergency lights blink. Choreography, not failure. And the band leader pulls his hat down. The signal that electricity is about to learn obedience. Somewhere a loyal man named Giorno reaches for the switch Raffaello installed for nights exactly like this. Leave now, the card commanded. Raffaello leans so only the boy hears. When the chandeliers die, go behind the counter. Keep low. Elias nods once. The silhouette's fan, still sure numbers mean victory. Poor arithmetic. The maitre d' drifts into their sightline and blocks a shot with hospitality. A nearby table erupts in conversation. Now, Raffaello says, and the chandeliers obey. Darkness folds the room like a closing hand, and with it the past loosens its bolts. The kitchen door waits, rain drumming the alley, where old debts crowd the threshold. That is where the story truly began, before the cobalt suit, with a friend named Luciano and a daughter who learned to disappear. Transition to backstory. How Luciano Marin became Raffaello's right hand, why a daughter named Alina vanished, and how the first lie planted tonight's note. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us keep these stories alive, and trust me, the best part is yet to come. Now let's get back to it. Darkness closed like a velvet lid. The chandeliers died. The room learned to breathe by muzzle flash. The first report thumped the ribs of Il Serpente d'Oro, and every polished surface turned to a map of panic. Silverware chiming, a chair shrieking across marble, the band leader's fedora vanishing under a table like a black coin. Down, Raffaello said, and the boy folded behind the counter exactly as instructed. No sound, no flail. Good. Someone had rehearsed him for fear. Footfalls approached, soft, predatory, too confident. The gunman by the pillar tried to get cute, using the mirror to track where Raffaello should be. The Don was already 2 steps left, knife reverse gripped, the breath measured, the count steady. He rose as the muzzle cleared the counter. The blade kissed wrist. Tendons popped like wet twine. The pistol skittered across lacquer, chased by a geyser of liquor from a wounded bottle. The man sagged with a choked curse, and Raffaello bounced his face off the rail, twice, just enough to retire him from the conversation. Another flash. Glass leapt. A woman screamed his name, Dawn, and then remembered names cost extra when bullets are billing. Raffaello's fingers found the fallen pistol. He didn't aim at the next silhouette. He aimed at the reflection of the silhouette in the brass column, a trick he'd taught a younger man a lifetime ago. The shot broke a shouldered intention. The gunman spun, clutching meat, and sat down hard in the ruins of a champagne tower. Silence tried to stand back up. Couldn't. Behind him, the boy's breathing stayed small and disciplined. Not panic. Containment. "Elias," Raffaello said without looking. "Stay." "I'm not a dog," the boy answered, voice tight but even. "You are a message," he replied, and moved. The memory rose without permission. A basement's white tile, plastic taped to the walls, the slow drip from a pipe like a metronome. Luciano Marin, hair damp, shirt open, jaw lifted to make room for dignity, refusing the blindfold. Raffaello standing where the camera would never see him. "Say it, Raff." The past clawed. "Say you know this is wrong." He hadn't said it. He'd signed it with a nod. The third gunman climbed the bar like a stutter of shadow. Raffaello stepped into him, elbow to throat, the pistol lifted in the same breath to block a desperate slash. Steel scraped steel. A knee introduced itself to a sternum. The man collapsed, coughing up something private. "Who sent you?" Raffaello asked. The gunman spat on marble. "The new order." "Spoken like a brochure," Raffaello said, and pressed him into sleep. He took inventory. 2 groaning on the floor, 1 napping, the room a confetti of glass and spilled amber. Customers crawled beneath tables. A hostess prayed into her hands. The maitre d', brave fool, guided a couple toward the kitchen with the same poise he'd used to present a soufflé. Elias peered over the counter lip. In the emergency glow, his face looked older by 10 winters. "There are more," he said, "in the corridor by the restrooms. One has a radio." "How do you know?" "I listened," he said simply. They counted down. Raffaello almost laughed. Luciano's boy. He holstered the pistol under his jacket and reached to help the child upright. Small bones, wiry strength. The cobalt sleeve brushed his cuff, and he saw it, the birthmark at the jaw, a ring of darker skin like a thumbprint that never washed away. Luciano had the same, a little higher, a crescent the color of bad coffee. He didn't mean to, but his hand found the boy's cheek. And for a heartbeat, Raffaello D'Ambris forgot there were guns in the building and remembered an afternoon on a pier, sunlight ribboning the water, Luciano teaching a little girl to skip stones. "Who are you to him?" Raffaello asked, the him leaving no doubt. Elias swallowed. He had rehearsed fear. He hadn't rehearsed this part. "His son," he said. "Luciano Maran, you killed my father." The world tilted and locked again. Son. Destiny didn't walk in. Someone carried it. Raffaello's mouth tasted of brass. "Your father was—" He stopped. The lie had too many splinters. "My brother." "You shot him," Elias said. Neither accusation nor plea. just a fact a boy had memorized because to forget it would be to betray a ghost. The corridor by the restrooms coughed footsteps. Raffaello tucked the child behind him, lifted the pistol two-handed, and extended it along the edge of the bar until muzzle and mirror were friends again. 3, Elias whispered. The one in the middle gives orders. The first figure peeked out. Raffaello rewarded him with a hole in the doorframe 1/2 inch from his ambition. Back, he commanded the room at large, and heard a hissed reply in a voice he recognized even when it tried to wear someone else's throat. Don't be heroic, old man. Niccolo Fabri. Greasy intelligence, a habit of speaking like every sentence had already been approved by a lawyer. Raffaello pictured the little mole on Niccolo's collarbone that barbers always nicked. He felt tired in the bones. You came to my table without a bottle, Raffaello said. Bad manners? You stayed too long, Niccolo replied. Bad survival. The corridor swallowed silence. A radio crackled. Raffaello needed 10 seconds and a blind corner. He got 3. A kitchen porter, pale with terror, crashed through the swinging door with a tray over his head. 2 shots sang past him and stitched tulips in the wallpaper. Raffaello threw an arm around the porter's waist and yanked him into cover. Run, he ordered. The porter ran. He glanced down. Elias was pressing his palms so hard into the lacquer the skin blanched. The boy's eyes were clear, though, and set on Raffaello's. Not begging. Measuring. You came to save me, Raffaello said softly. But not only me. The chin lifted a notch. If you die, she has no leverage. She. Elias closed the circle. Alina. His daughter's name entered the dark like a match on oil. Alina on the villa steps in a red dress, telling him the blood on her shoes was father-shaped. Alina dropping her keys on his desk and leaving the city with a suitcase and a curse that sounded like love. Alina, who had not called in years until tonight, using a boy as a telegram wired to his conscience. Where is she? Raffaello asked. Not here, Elias answered. If she is, you already lost. He would have smiled if the room didn't have teeth. Another muzzle flash from the corridor. Raffaello fired low, heard a howl, and moved. He shoved the boy toward the gap where the bar met the service door. Kitchen, he said. Stay close to the ovens. If you smell gas, hold your breath and keep moving. You won't come. I built this place, Raffaello said. It knows my steps. They slid through the service door just as Niccolo's men pushed the corridor. Heat bloomed from the stoves, a humid, garlic-salt breath. A pan lay overturned, a lattice of plates glittered on tile. Somewhere outside, sirens decided which street to choose. 2 sous chefs cowered under a prep table. Raffaello waved them toward the alley. Move quick, keep low. They did. In the kitchen's reflected chaos, the dawn saw the boy's profile again. Jaw set, eyes tracking entry points and shadows. Luciano had looked like that the night the police raided a card room on 7th, and the young consigliere walked out calm because panic is how laws get passed. Who told you to write smile? Raffaello asked as they moved. I did, Elias said. Alina said you only look human when you pretend to be. He almost laughed again. Then a figure lunged from behind a rack of hanging pans, swinging a meat hook. Thomas LaRusso, square-shouldered, face like a shovel, breath peppered with mint to hide the rot. The hook whistled. Raffaello caught wrists, pivoted, felt something tear in his own shoulder, and brought Thomas's head into the steel doorframe with a noise like checked luggage. The big man folded with slow confusion. Elias stared. Not horror. Calibration. Don't admire this, Raffaello said. It steals time from you. They reached the back hall, the narrow artery to the alley. A shadow stepped into it, gun first. The boy didn't think. He acted. He bent, scooped the fallen stiletto from earlier. He must have palmed it when Raffaello turned, and drove the blade once, just under the ribs, where bone yields and lungs wail. The gunman spasmed, dropped, tried to understand the floor. Elias trembled afterward, the way a wire hums after the current cuts. Raffaello caught his wrist and lowered the knife. He didn't say good. He didn't say I'm sorry. The words had to learn where to go. "Who taught you that?" he asked instead. "My father," the boy said, "before he died. He said, if you ever have to, once, low and sure." He swallowed. "I didn't think I would ever have to." "Your father didn't think he would ever have to teach his son," Raffaello said, and hated the truth in it. They pushed through the exit into rain that rinsed the heat off skin. The alley smelled of damp cardboard and old meals. A van idled near the dumpsters, windows blacked, a sliding door slit open like a grin. Raffaello placed the boy behind him and approached as if he were just a man walking to his car after a late dinner. The van's door jerked wider. A muzzle appeared. Raffaello fired twice. The van screamed in reverse, fishtailed, bit trash, and fled. Tires wrote panic on wet cobble. The emergency lights from the dining room licked the alley in red. A figure, Giorno, emerged from the side entrance, breath fogging. "Boss," he rasped. "Inside is—" "Broken," Raffaello finished. "Count our own. Keep the police gentle and the fire department brave." Giorno nodded and vanished to accomplish crimes that would look like logistics. Raffaello crouched by the boy. Elias was still holding the knife, point down, as if he didn't know where to put it without declaring a future. The note sat in his jacket pocket, a square of stubborn paper refusing to dissolve in the wet. "You shouldn't have come," Raffaello said. The words tasted wrong even as he spoke them. "My father said mercy can still cut deeper than revenge," Elias answered. He looked at his hands as if they belonged to a witness. "I thought maybe you remembered how." Raffaello stared at the boy and saw 2 rooms at once, the alley washed by rain and a church basement washed by fluorescent light. He had not remembered then. Perhaps the remembering had chosen a different day. He took the knife from Elias gently and set it on the curb, where the water could decide what to clean and what to keep. The city widened around them with sirens and attention. Across the street, patrons spilled into the night, their elegance turned to laundry in the weather. "Come," Raffaello said. "There's a place we can speak without walls listening." "Safe?" Elias asked. "No," Raffaello said. "True." He led the boy along the back lane toward a door that looked like refuse and opened like a memory. As they descended into the service tunnel that once smuggled casks and now ferried contrition, Raffaello let the past climb to his shoulder and sit there, feathered and heavy. Luciano Marin had been loyal. He had been framed with meticulous care. Raffaello had believed the evidence he paid to hear. The execution had been efficient because Raffaello respected work done clean. And afterward the city had gotten quieter, and his daughter had gotten colder, and the house had learned how to sleep without being a home. The tunnel turned. Water tapped. Somewhere ahead, an old door waited, the one that led to the office where the first rules were written and the first mercy refused. "Tell me everything," Raffaello said, "from your beginning." Elias nodded, small and serious in the wet light, and together they stepped into the room where memory would have to answer for itself. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe and like this video. It helps more people discover stories like this one. and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now, take a deep breath, because what happens next will change everything. The corridor rattled with gunfire. Muffled blasts thudded through the marble bones of Il Serpente d'Oro, each one dimmer than the last as Giorno's hand found the breaker panel. A single metallic click, and the chandeliers bled out one by one, gold giving way to black. The restaurant inhaled its first true silence in years. Then came the noise beneath it. Crackling glass, a gasp torn from someone's throat, the flutter of a dying candle. Gunfire sliced the dark like a photographer's flash, each burst catching a new snapshot of chaos. Overturned tables, a red dress sprinting toward a door, the white gleam of teeth in terror. The blackout turned the place into a labyrinth made of breath and memory. Raffaello moved through it like a shadow that had rehearsed its steps. He knew the angles, the corners, the way sound carried off polished surfaces. His hand found the boy beneath the counter. Elias, curled small as a prayer. "Stay," Raffaello whispered. "No sound." The boy nodded, face pale, eyes silvered by the strobe of violence. A shape lunged from the reflection of a mirrored pillar. Raffaello pivoted, one step, one shot. The man folded backward, colliding with a wine rack. Bottles screamed as they died, spilling years of stored patience onto the floor. Somewhere to the left, a voice called out over the chaos. Low, familiar, crawling with betrayal. "Don Raffaello." He recognized it instantly. Dario Belmonte. A voice that once toasted him at christenings and burials alike. "The old ways end tonight," Dario shouted. "The city's already moving on." "You're the only one who hasn't noticed." Raffaello moved towards the sound. His shoes crunched over glass and bone. "Then you should have left me sleeping." A laugh echoed from behind a column. "You think this is about power? It's about cleansing. The rot has to burn before the new order breathes." Raffaello's hand brushed the wall, fingers tracing a bullet hole still warm. He whispered to himself, "Burn." The smell reached him first, a thin, chemical sweetness bleeding from the shattered gas lamps near the bar. Giorno had warned him years ago that the old lines under Il Serpente were brittle. One spark, and the place would turn into a cathedral of fire. The hiss of leaking gas sang through the floorboards. The air grew heavy, volatile, waiting for a mistake. Raffaello crouched behind an overturned banquette, eyes adjusting to the blue haze of emergency light. Across the room, Dario's outline flickered into view. Pistol drawn, a grin barely visible. "You taught me everything I know," he said, "including how to end a legend." "And yet," Raffaello replied, rising with the slow inevitability of a ghost, "you still speak like a student." He fired once. The bullet clipped Dario's arm. The gun fell. Dario snarled and charged, crashing through furniture. They met halfway, two men bound by memory and violence, grappling amid the shards of their own empire. The pistol skidded across the tiles. Raffaello drove Dario's head into a mirror, watched it spiderweb. "Tell me," Raffaello hissed, "who paid for this?" Dario's breath hitched. "No one pays for a revolution. They survive it." Raffaello pressed harder. "The boy. Why warn me?" That grin again, bloodied now. "He's the loose end your daughter left behind. Burn the restaurant, burn the witnesses, the name Dambris dies clean." Elias's name almost slipped from Raffaello's tongue, but before it could, Dario spat through the blood. "She planned this too. Alina always said she'd rather see the ashes than the empire." The words froze the air. Even the leaking gas seemed to hesitate, listening. Behind them, a wine bottle rolled off the bar and struck the floor. The spark was microscopic, glass on brass. But it was enough. The explosion arrived without warning. A bloom of white heat tore through the room, glass erupting in a storm of diamonds and fire. The chandeliers fell like angels dragged from heaven, their crystals shrieking as they shattered. The blast threw Raffaello backward. His coat caught flame. The smell of burning silk filled his lungs. Dario disappeared in the wave, swallowed whole, a silhouette swallowed by his own prophecy. Raffaello rolled, coughing, beating out the flames on his sleeve. The ceiling screamed above him, ancient wood groaning under heat. He crawled through smoke toward the counter. "Elias!" The boy's voice answered from below the bar. Small, hoarse, alive. "Here!" He found the child curled beneath a fallen stool, one arm shielding his head, the other clutching the folded note like scripture. Raffaello pulled him out, wrapping his coat around the boy's shoulders. "Keep your head down," he said. The kitchen door loomed ahead, half-hinged, glowing orange at the seams. Behind them, bottles detonated one by one. Each burst another heartbeat of a dying kingdom. Raffaello pushed forward, shoulder first, dragging Elias through smoke that tasted of oil and history. The boy coughed. "He said it would all burn." "Then let it," Raffaello rasped. "The dead can have their monuments." They stumbled into the service corridor, narrow, choking with haze. Flames licked along the walls like curious animals. The tiles underfoot had gone slick with wine and blood. Giorno appeared at the far end, face streaked with soot. "Boss," he waved frantically. "This way, before the gas line." The sentence didn't finish. The second blast thundered through the restaurant, hurling debris down the hall. Heat chased them like vengeance. Giorno caught Raffaello's arm, pulling him through a maintenance door as a wave of fire devoured the corridor they'd just crossed. Outside, the night was soaked in rain. Steam hissed off their coats. Behind them, Il Serpente d'Oro collapsed inward, gold leaf peeling, windows imploding, the sign's serpent emblem melting into nothing. Elias clutched the note, edges blackened now, ink bleeding like a wound. Raffaello stared at it, unable to tell if the smudges were water or tears. "What does it say again?" Giorno asked, breath ragged. Raffaello looked at the words, barely legible. "Smile. Leave right now." He almost laughed. The boy had delivered salvation in handwriting that shook. They watched the flames chew through the upper floors until the roof caved. Raffaello thought of every deal signed at that bar, every sin poured over ice, every ghost seated at his table. Elias stood beside him, trembling but unbroken. His hair clung wet to his forehead. "You saved me," he said. "No," Raffaello replied, voice low. "You saved me first." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a lighter, gold, engraved with an old motto, "Fortuna non perdona." Fortune does not forgive. He flipped it open, stared at the dead flame, then dropped it into the gutter. Behind them, the fire roared like applause. "Come," Raffaello said, turning toward the alley where the rain fell cleanest. "Before the ghosts learn we're still alive." Elias followed, one hand still clutching the charred note, the other brushing against Raffaello's sleeve. They walked until the sound of sirens swallowed the burning behind them, a dying empire's final hymn echoing in the distance. Rain washed the last of Il Serpente d'Oro from the air, but the smell of fire clung to Raffaello's skin like guilt. The city behind them pulsed with sirens, red and blue bleeding into the black water of the docks. Giorno had vanished to scatter the trail, and now only two figures remained in the upper floor of a forgotten warehouse, where the glass had long since surrendered to salt and wind. The safe house wasn't much. A single bulb dangling above a table, its flicker ticking like a slow heartbeat. Raffaello poured whiskey from a bottle that had survived the escape. The liquid trembled in the glass, same color as the flames that had erased his kingdom. Elias sat opposite him, knees drawn up, wrapped in a towel too large for his frame. His cobalt jacket was gone, singed beyond recognition, replaced with one of Giorno's old shirts that hung like a promise never meant to fit. His eyes were dry. That disturbed Raffaello most of all. "How did you know?" Raffaello asked finally, voice a low grind of exhaustion. The boy didn't hesitate. "Because she told me." The glass froze halfway to Raffaello's lips. He didn't ask who she was. The words didn't need to be spoken. The answer was already shaping itself in the space between them. "She said if the note reached you, it meant you still had time," Elias continued softly. "If it didn't, then everything deserved to burn." Raffaello set the glass down. "Alina." The name slid out like an old wound reopening. He rose from the table and walked toward the cracked window overlooking the docks. Cargo cranes stood like crosses against the horizon. Beyond them, the sea stretched dark and endless, the only thing that could swallow a man's sins whole. For a long while, only the rain spoke. When he finally turned, Elias was watching him with that same eerie stillness, as if waiting to see whether the name meant love or hatred. "She's alive," Raffaello said, more to himself than the boy. "After all this time." Elias nodded. "She never stopped watching you." That earned a bitter laugh. "My daughter hated everything I built." "She still does," Elias said simply. "That's why she sent me." The boy's calmness was surgical, not cruelty, just truth sharpened to a fine edge. Raffaello sat again, his mind unraveling into places it had buried long ago. He saw her, Alina, framed in sunlight, 17 and fearless. She had her mother's fire and his silence. The day she first raised her voice at him, the sound cracked something deeper than pride. He'd come home late that night, blood on his cuff, power on his breath. She'd been waiting in his study, beside the grand piano no one had played since her mother's funeral. "I saw them drag him out of the car," she had said. Her voice had been steady, though her hands trembled. "Luciano Marin, you said he betrayed you, but I heard him call you brother." Raffaello had poured himself a drink then, pretending calm. "You're a child, Alina. You don't understand what loyalty costs." "I understand exactly what it costs," she'd replied. "It costs people. It costs love." He remembered her throwing the glass ashtray across the room, remembered the shards catching candlelight like tiny comets. "One day, you'll choke on the blood you've baptized yourself in," she'd said, "and I won't be there to save you." She hadn't been. He blinked the memory away and stared at the boy sitting before him, the proof that her words hadn't vanished. They'd taken form. Flesh. Eyes that had watched empires fall without blinking. "So," Raffaello said, leaning back, "she's decided to destroy me through you." Elias didn't flinch. "She said you would see it that way." "And how should I see it?" "As a chance," Elias replied. "She said you were a man who once understood mercy, before power taught you to forget." Raffaello's jaw tightened. Mercy. The word was a relic from a different life, a language he hadn't spoken in decades. The boy reached into his pocket and produced the folded note, edges charred but words still visible. "She made me write it," he said. "Said it had to be your choice, not hers." Raffaello took it, staring at the ink as if it could reveal something beyond the obvious. Smile. Leave right now. She said if you smiled, Elias added, it meant there was still a man left to save. The bulb above them flickered again, once, twice, as if unsure whose heart it mirrored. Raffaello rubbed a hand over his face, the fatigue finally showing through the armor. You think she sent you to save me? She sent you to remind me what I destroyed. The boy's expression softened for the first time. Maybe both. He rose and moved toward the small heater by the wall. The metal glowed dull orange, fighting the damp chill. She told me you loved music, Elias said quietly, that you stopped playing when she left. Raffaello said nothing, but his eyes went to the far corner, where an old upright piano sat beneath a tarp, left there by a previous tenant. The keys were yellowed, some broken, others stubbornly silent. He walked to it, lifted the cover, and pressed one finger to a key. The note wheezed out, off-pitch, hollow, but still alive. She said you played for her mother, Elias continued. Every night until she died. Raffaello's throat tightened. Your father used to say the same thing, he murmured, that I kept the dead close because I was afraid of forgetting them. Did you? He looked at the boy, the question heavier than the night. No, he said. I just buried them under gold. Elias came closer, the heater's light painting his face in amber. For the first time, Raffaello saw him not as Luciano's son or Alina's messenger, but as something in between. A bridge between every sin he'd tried to hide and every truth he'd refused to face. She said you'd understand eventually, the boy whispered, that when everything burned, you'd finally see what she meant. And what did she mean? Raffaello asked. Elias hesitated, then spoke as if reciting a memory not his own. That mercy isn't weakness. It's the last thing that makes a man human. Outside, the wind howled through the docks, rattling the window panes. The sea kept time against the walls. Raffaello watched the boy return to the table and curl into the chair, exhaustion overtaking defiance. Within minutes, Elias was asleep, the note still clutched in his hand, his breathing shallow but steady. Raffaello stood over him for a long time, studying the faint line of the boy's jaw, the dark hair matted by rain, the smudge of soot near his ear. In that flickering light, he saw echoes of two people, Luciano's quiet loyalty, Alina's impossible courage, fused into something new. The wind caught the bulb, and the light wavered again, stretching shadows across the floor like reaching ghosts. Raffaello turned away from the window, poured what remained of the whiskey into the sink, and whispered to no one. The boy shouldn't exist, but maybe that's the point. He glanced back once more. The child slept soundly beneath the hum of the flickering bulb, and for the first time in 20 years, the dawn of Il Serpente d'Oro felt something dangerously close to peace. The rain had thinned to a drizzle by dawn, leaving the docks veiled in steam. From the warehouse window, Raffaello watched the harbor lights pulse faintly through fog, their glow fractured on the slick water. The boy was still asleep on the cot behind him, one hand curled around that damn note, a relic that refused to let him forget. The quiet wouldn't last. Giorno arrived just after sunrise, shoulders hunched against the cold. He dropped a satchel onto the table. Ledgers, photos, a blood-stained pocket square folded like an apology. Belmonte's gone, he said, but he wasn't alone. Fabri and LaRusso are still breathing, for now. Raffaello opened the ledgers, his fingers slow but sure. The family turned inward, he murmured. That's how empires rot. Not from knives in the dark, but from ones laid carefully at the dinner table. The pages told the story in ink and silence, falsified accounts, rerouted shipments, payments to nameless fronts. All roads circled back to one phrase, scrawled in a familiar hand. Project Rustin. Rustin, Raffaello said. The alderman. The one who made a career out of burying men like me under speeches and reform bills. Giorno nodded. He's been meeting with Fabri's people. Quietly. My contact says Rustin's campaign is funded through a holding company tied to LaRusso's cousins. Raffaello closed the ledger and stared at the name. Pietro Rustin. A politician who preached purity while laundering his ambition through blood. But the strangest part wasn't his involvement. It was what lay tucked behind the receipts, a page torn from another ledger. Older. Personal. His breath caught when he saw the signature. Alina Vescari. The ink was faint but real, her name woven into transactions that predated the coup. Transfers to shell corporations, accounts used to move money offshore. The pattern wasn't coincidence. She knew, Raffaello whispered. Giorno hesitated. Or someone wants you to think she did. Raffaello's jaw tightened. No one forges my daughter's hand. He rose, pacing, the weight of betrayal pressing into his ribs like a second heart. He could still hear her voice from that last argument years ago. You built a throne out of coffins, father. One day you'll sit on it alone. Maybe this was her way of making it true. Behind him, a small sound, a stir of movement. Elias sat up, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The flickering light carved his features into echoes of two ghosts. You're looking for her? He said softly. Raffaello turned. She was part of it. Elias frowned. No, she wouldn't. She's her father's daughter, Raffaello snapped, then regretted it instantly. The boy's face fell, the innocence dimming behind his eyes. She sent me to save you, Elias said. If she wanted you dead, she'd have done nothing. Raffaello stared at him for a long time. The logic was simple, brutal, and true. He sighed and gestured to the table. Come. Look. Elias climbed onto a chair beside him. The ledgers looked oversized in his hands, pages thick with coded entries and half-burned receipts. His brow furrowed as he traced the columns of numbers. These aren't random, he said quietly. See the pattern? The last digits on every transfer. They spell something. Raffaello leaned closer. The boy wasn't wrong. Across months of transactions, each end digit aligned to form coordinates. You read this? My father taught me how, Elias said. He said real power hides in the math. The coordinates pointed to an address on the waterfront, a private office owned by Rustin Holdings. But it was what Elias found next that froze them both. In the margin, a handwritten note in Niccolo Fabri's script. Deliver dossier to AV before vote. Alina, Raffaello breathed. They weren't just working with her. They were using her. Elias glanced up. To do what? Leverage, Raffaello said. Rustin's election buys legitimacy. My empire's ashes buy control. Alina was supposed to be the bridge, the reformer who denounces her father and crowns the new regime clean. But she vanished, Elias said. She didn't play their game. Which means, Raffaello murmured, they'll kill her next. The realization snapped the room into motion. Raffaello gathered the ledgers, sliding them into a waterproof case. The docks below were stirring, cranes creaking, gulls circling, men shouting in languages built for commerce and deceit. He turned to Giorno. Find Fabri. Quietly. alive if possible. Giorno nodded and left through the back stairwell. Elias watched him go, then turned to Raffaello. If you find her, what will you do? The question landed like a stone. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he poured 2 cups of coffee, one black, one with a hint of sugar, a habit he hadn't broken since Alina's childhood mornings. The steam rose between them like confession. I used to believe every betrayal deserved blood, he said at last. But I've killed so many men in the name of loyalty that I can't tell which graves belong to enemies and which to friends. Elias's voice was small but steady. Then maybe you don't have to kill anymore. Raffaello met his eyes. And what would you call justice, boy? Letting them walk free? Letting them build a world worse than mine, only with cleaner hands? Elias looked down at the ledger, fingers tracing the code again. My father said justice is what comes after the killing stops. Raffaello stared at him, the words digging deeper than they should. He wanted to argue, to teach the boy that the world didn't work that way. But for the first time in years, he couldn't find the strength to defend the rules he'd written in blood. A gust of wind slammed the window open. Papers scattered like startled birds. Raffaello grabbed one before it flew out. A photo clipped to a report. Rustin, shaking hands with Niccolo Fabri. Behind them, half in shadow, stood a familiar figure. Thomas Lorusso. Raffaello's pulse steadied into something cold and certain. The betrayal isn't finished, he said. It's evolving. Elias frowned. And my mother, Alina, she's still part of it? I don't know, Raffaello admitted. But if her name's on their books, she's already in danger. He looked at the boy again, at the calm composure hiding the tremor beneath. Luciano's son, Alina's ward, the living embodiment of everything he'd tried to bury. The city outside was waking now, the fog thinning to reveal the cranes and the slow churn of commerce. Somewhere out there, power was shifting, not with bullets this time, but with signatures and speeches. Raffaello holstered his pistol and buttoned his coat. Get some rest, he said. Tonight we hunt ghosts. Elias didn't lie down. And if the ghost is her? Raffaello paused at the door, the morning light carving lines across his face. Then I'll ask her one question, he said quietly. Did she want me dead? Or did she want me to finally live? The wind off the sea carried no answer, only the low toll of a harbor bell echoing through the fog. A reminder that even the dead had their schedules to keep. The villa sat at the edge of the hills, where the vineyards gave way to pine and fog. It had once belonged to Luciano Marin, a house of laughter, of loyalty, and now stood as a mausoleum of both. The iron gates groaned open to Raffaello's touch, as if even they remembered the hand that had signed their owner's death. Inside, the air smelled of dust and rain. Furniture draped in white sheets formed pale ghosts across the living room. Raffaello walked through them in silence, his footsteps slow, deliberate. Elias trailed close behind, his eyes tracing the walls like someone walking through a memory he didn't know he had. This place was my father's? He asked quietly. Raffaello nodded. He bought it with his first cut from the docks. Said he wanted a home built on something clean. And you let him keep it? For a time. The Don's voice was soft. Until clean started meaning dangerous. He moved toward the fireplace where an old photograph hung slightly crooked on the wall. He brushed away the thin veil of dust. And there they were, 3 figures frozen in sepia light. Luciano smiling, his hand resting on Raffaello's shoulder. Between them, a little girl, Alina, no older than 7, her face turned toward the camera, eyes bright with the uncomplicated joy of a world still whole. Elias stepped closer. His father looked young there, hopeful. He reached up and touched the edge of the frame. "Did you ever regret it?" he asked. Raffaello didn't turn. "Every morning since?" The words fell like stones into still water. He lowered his gaze, jaw tight, as if holding back something far heavier than confession. "He was my brother," Raffaello said after a long silence. "Not by blood, but by everything that matters. We built the foundation together. When the empire started to rot, I thought cutting him out would save it. I was wrong. It only made the infection spread faster." Elias studied him, the myth of the Mafia king unraveling into something painfully human. "My mother told me he trusted you until the end," he said. "She said he didn't even raise his voice when they came for him." "He didn't," Raffaello whispered. "He just looked at me once, and I knew I'd already lost something I'd never get back." They stood together before the photo, silence thick between them. Outside, the rain had stopped, and through the cracked windows came the smell of wet earth and pine. For a rare moment, the world held its breath. "Why bring me here?" Elias asked finally. "Because I needed to remember what I destroyed," Raffaello said, "and you needed to see what your father built before I turned it to ashes." The boy's eyes softened, confusion and anger folding into something harder to name. "You talk like you want forgiveness." "I do," Raffaello said, "but not from you. From the dead." Elias turned away, crossing to the window. Below, the vineyard swayed in slow rhythm, dark leaves glistening with dew. "My father used to tell me power was just another kind of prison," he said. "I never understood what he meant, until I met you." Raffaello almost smiled. Then maybe he was right about one thing. A sound interrupted them, a faint metallic click, like steel kissing stone. Instinct overrode thought. Raffaello grabbed the boy, pulling him down just as the front window exploded inward. Shards of glass cascaded through the air, catching the pale light like falling stars. "Down!" he hissed, rolling behind the sofa as bullets shredded the white sheets into ribbons. 3 figures moved in the doorway. Black coats, suppressed weapons. Efficient, professional. Not family soldiers. These were contractors. He could tell by their silence. Elias's heartbeat pounded against his arm. Raffaello drew his pistol from his coat, motioned toward the side hallway. "Go left," he whispered. "The kitchen. Back door. Stay low." "What about you?" Elias whispered back. "I'll follow." The boy hesitated. Too long. Raffaello shoved him hard toward the door just as another round tore through the couch. The boy scrambled to the corridor. Raffaello stood and fired twice. One shot hit glass. The other found a shoulder. A man screamed and dropped. The other 2 fanned out, moving with trained precision. Raffaello ducked behind a pillar, his breath sharp and steady. He'd been through enough ambushes to recognize this pattern. Drive him from cover, box him in, burn the house afterward. Clean work. He counted their steps. 1 near the piano, 1 behind the staircase. He fired at the piano man first. The bullet took him in the thigh. The man fell backward into the keys, a single discordant note echoing like a scream. The second attacker flanked right, spraying bullets toward the hallway where Elias had gone. Raffaello pivoted out, firing blind, drawing attention. "Over here!" he shouted. It worked. The attacker turned. In the same instant, Elias emerged from the kitchen doorway, small and pale against the firelight of gunpowder. In his hand was a revolver, Raffaello's backup piece from the drawer. "Elias, no!" The boy didn't hesitate. One shot cracked the air. The bullet hit true, center mass. The man stumbled, tried to raise his weapon, and collapsed against the wall, leaving a smear of red that bled down like paint. Elias stared, frozen, gun trembling in both hands. Raffaello crossed the room and grabbed the weapon, lowering it gently. "It's done," he said. "It's over." But the boy couldn't hear him. His gaze was locked on the dead man, eyes wide with the terrible knowledge of what he'd just done. "He was going to kill you," he whispered. Raffaello knelt, voice low, almost tender. "And now you've saved me." Tears mixed with sweat and dust on Elias's cheeks. "I didn't want to." "No one ever does," Raffaello said. "Not the first time." Outside, the night was beginning to break, a faint glow bleeding over the hills. Raffaello looked at the shattered photo on the wall. The glass was cracked through Luciano's face, the line splitting down through Alina's smile, leaving his own untouched. The irony wasn't lost on him. He rose and guided the boy toward the door. "We can't stay. Others will come." As they stepped outside, the cold air hit them. Sharp, clean, almost merciful. The villa smoldered behind them, smoke curling like a memory refusing to fade. Elias glanced up at him, voice barely above a whisper. "You said you regret killing my father. Do you regret what I just did?" Raffaello looked down at him, at the small, trembling hands that had held death and innocence in the same breath. "I regret that you had to learn what I did," he said, "but not that you lived." They started down the dirt road toward the car. Behind them, dawn spilled across the hills, turning the smoke gold. And for a fleeting second, Raffaello wondered if this was what redemption looked like. Two survivors walking away from the ghosts that refused to stay buried. The safe house was little more than a shadow at the city's edge, a forgotten train depot swallowed by ivy and concrete. Its windows were blacked out, its name rusted from the walls. Giorno's last coordinates led them here, traced from a signal buried deep inside Elias's phone. Whoever had placed it there had known Raffaello would find it eventually. He stepped through the open archway first, pistol drawn, the echo of their footsteps trailing behind like ghosts reluctant to fade. Elias followed, his movements quiet, the boy's small silhouette steady even in the dark. They descended the old stairwell. Below, a faint hum vibrated through the walls, the sound of generators, of life hiding beneath decay. When they reached the final landing, Raffaello saw her. Alina stood in the center of the old maintenance room, arms crossed, hair pinned up, eyes cold as glass. She looked older, sharper, the softness of youth stripped away by distance and purpose. Behind her, screens flickered with grainy surveillance feeds, city streets, government offices, the burned-out shell of Il Serpente d'Oro. "Hello, Father." The words were even, deliberate, not a greeting, a line drawn. Raffaello holstered his gun, but didn't move closer. "You could have just called." "I did," she said. "I sent a boy with a note." Elias looked between them, the distance between blood and betrayal hanging thick in the air. "You used him," Raffaello said. "I saved him," Alina countered, "just like I tried to save you." The silence that followed was years long. Raffaello took a slow breath, his voice steady but low. "You orchestrated the attack." She met his gaze. "Yes, but not the part that burned." Her tone didn't flinch. She stepped closer, the light catching the small scar above her brow, the one she'd gotten as a child climbing the piano bench in his study. "I needed to expose what your empire became," she said, "the lie it fed. The men you trusted, Belmonte, Fabri, LaRusso, they were bleeding your family dry. I planned to draw them out. You weren't supposed to die that night. You were supposed to see." Raffaello's laugh came out as a rasp. "And you thought a child with a note would open my eyes?" "It did," she said quietly. "Didn't it?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Elias shifted uneasily. "They found us at the villa," he said. "They knew where we were." "How?" Alina's eyes darkened. "Because Niccolo and Thomas sold us both out. They took the plan, the evidence we gathered, the bank routes, the recordings, and handed them to Rustin." Raffaello frowned. "Rustin. The alderman." "The reformer," she said bitterly. "He promised to clean up the city, but he's worse than any of us. He wants control, not justice. With the family dead, he becomes the hero who saves a city from monsters. A convenient illusion." Raffaello's voice dropped. "And now he wants us both gone." Alina nodded. "Your liabilities, witnesses to a truth he can't afford to live." The air thickened. The only sound was the hum of machines and the slow tick of a leaking pipe. Raffaello stepped closer. "So this is your redemption. Burn your father's empire, hand his corpse to a politician, and call it cleansing?" Her eyes flashed. "You think I wanted this? You made it happen." "I tried to stop it." They were face to face now. Two forces that had built and broken the same world. Elias stood between them, small, silent, holding the same stillness that once belonged to both. "You taught me that mercy was weakness," Alina said. "You made me believe power was the only thing that kept us safe. But the empire you built, it ate everything. It killed Luciano, it destroyed me, and it turned you into something unrecognizable." Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with fury suppressed for years. "I didn't want to kill you, Father. I wanted to save what was left of you. I wanted you to see what you'd become." Raffaello looked away, the weight of her words pressing harder than bullets. "And if I refuse?" "Then Rustin wins, and the city becomes worse than what you ever made it." The name echoed through the room. On one of the monitors, footage flickered. Rustin at a press conference, his hand raised, promising a new dawn. Behind him stood Niccolo Fabri and Thomas LaRusso, faces masked as bodyguards. Elias's breath caught. "He's using them." "Not using," Alina said. "Owning. They gave him everything. The codes to your accounts, your shipments, your network. They think he'll make them kings. But Rustin doesn't share thrones." Raffaello stared at the screen, the old instincts waking inside him, cold, sharp, lethal. "Then we kill him before he finishes his coronation." Alina's eyes narrowed. "You think it's that simple?" "You can't shoot your way out of this one. The man has the press, the police, half the council. He's already turned your empire into his campaign slogan." "Then we take it back," Raffaello said, "piece by piece." "You mean together?" He looked at her, the question heavy between them. Years of silence. Years of pride. "Yes," he said finally. "Together." The word landed like a truce, signed in blood. Alina exhaled, tension breaking like glass. "Then you'll need proof." "The files Niccolo stole are in Rustin's possession, hard drives stored at the Regatta building. Tomorrow night he hosts his gala. Every ally and enemy under one roof." Raffaello smirked. "A party? Perfect." "Don't mistake it for celebration," she said. "It'll be a slaughterhouse if we're caught." Elias looked up. "Then we won't be caught." Both turned toward him. The boy who had survived more in one night than most men did in a lifetime. Alina knelt beside him, her expression softening. You were never supposed to see this world. I already have, he said, and I'm still here. Raffaello rested a hand on the boy's shoulder. He's right. If we're going to end this, we use what you started. Mercy disguised as vengeance. Alina straightened, searching his face. And when it's over? Then you disappear, he said. You and the boy. I finish what I began. Always the martyr, she murmured. You can't save the world by dying in it, Father. He almost smiled. No, but I can make sure it remembers why it shouldn't forget. The lights flickered again. Somewhere above, thunder rolled over the city. Heavy, deliberate, like a warning. Raffaello turned to the screens, studying the map of the Regatta district. One night, he said. That's all we have. Alina nodded. One night to burn the machine before it consumes everything. The three of them stood there, framed by the hum of the monitors and the low rumble of storm. Father, daughter, and the boy who carried both their sins. For the first time, they weren't enemies or ghosts. They were bloodlines, converging for one last war. The Grand Regatta Hall shimmered like a lie dressed in gold. 100 chandeliers blazed over marble floors polished so bright the reflections looked alive. Waiters glided through the crowd with silver trays. The air hummed with laughter that didn't reach the eyes. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the river calm, moonlight sliding across its surface like silk. Inside, the city's elite gathered to toast its savior, Alderman Pietro Rustin, the man who promised to cleanse the streets of blood without ever admitting whose veins it had come from. Raffaello adjusted his cufflinks beneath the black tuxedo Alina had chosen. The disguise fit too well, and that bothered him. Beside him, Alina was every inch the phantom of high society. Sleek gown, cold smile, eyes scanning the room with a predator's patience. Elias stood between them in a waiter's uniform, 2 sizes too big, his hair slicked back, his hands trembling just enough to remind Raffaello that he was still a child in a world where innocence was currency no one accepted. Keep to the service route, Alina murmured. If anything goes wrong, head for the kitchen doors. I'm not leaving, Elias said. Raffaello's voice was quiet, heavy. Then listen. Watch. When the moment comes, you'll know what to do. The orchestra began, strings swelling beneath the drone of conversation. Rustin took the stage, all teeth and polish, his tailored suit the color of power. Tonight, he declared, we celebrate rebirth, a city freed from the chains of corruption, built anew on integrity and courage. Applause thundered. Cameras flashed. Raffaello watched from the edge of the crowd. He could almost laugh. The speech was his own legacy, rewritten in cleaner ink. The man who once hunted him now spoke like his successor. Alina leaned in. Top floor balcony, she whispered. That's where the servers lead. Rustin's office overlooks the ballroom. Files should be there. We get them. We walk out. He nodded. They began moving, slow and deliberate, weaving through the guests like shadows wearing masks. But as they neared the staircase, Raffaello froze. 2 men flanked the base of the stairs. Black suits, familiar faces. Niccolo Fabbri, Thomas LaRusso, the last of his traitors dressed as bodyguards. Niccolo's eyes met his, a flicker of recognition, then the faintest smirk. Thomas didn't smile. He just rested a hand on the holster under his jacket, a silent promise waiting to be kept. Alina's hand brushed Raffaello's sleeve. Stay calm, she whispered. We need the evidence. Evidence won't stop men like them, he said. But he moved anyway, each step measured. Niccolo blocked the way, bowing slightly. "Mr. Dambris," he said smoothly, "you look well for a ghost." Raffaello's jaw tightened. "And you look bought." "Everyone's bought," Niccolo said. "Some just have better contracts." Tomas's voice was lower, rougher. "You should have stayed buried, old man. Rustin's the future. You're the past trying to breathe through dirt." Raffaello almost smiled. "Then let's see if the past still bites." Before Thomas could draw, Alina moved, a flash of motion, the edge of her heel connecting with his wrist. The gun spun from his hand. Niccolo grabbed her, twisting her arm. Raffaello lunged, slamming Niccolo into the marble pillar, elbow cracking ribs. The music drowned the struggle. Laughter masked the violence. Elias froze near the column, eyes wide. The gun slid across the floor toward him. "Elias!" Alina shouted. He dropped to his knees just as Thomas recovered, his second pistol already drawn, the barrel gleaming in the light. Time splintered. The man turned the gun on Raffaello. The boy didn't think. He moved. He grabbed the fallen weapon and fired once, just as his father once taught. Low, between the ribs, sure and close. Thomas's eyes widened in disbelief. He staggered back, blood blooming through his white shirt, and collapsed beneath the chandelier's fractured light. The room didn't stop. The orchestra played on, the crowd oblivious. But within that narrow circle of reality, everything else had gone silent. Elias dropped the gun. His small hands shook, his breath catching. "He was going to kill you," he whispered. Raffaello caught him by the shoulders, pulling him close. "I know," he said. "You did what you had to." Alina's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her. "We have to move." Rustin's office. Now. They climbed the stairs, the sound of their shoes lost beneath the waltz below. The upper balcony smelled of champagne and politics. Expensive decay. Behind the velvet curtains, Rustin waited. He stood beside his desk, surrounded by glass walls overlooking the city. The view was magnificent and merciless. "Don Raffaello Dambris," Rustin said, spreading his arms as if greeting an old friend. "I was wondering when the relic would come to claim his tombstone." Raffaello stepped forward, gun lowered but not forgotten. "You used my daughter. You turned my empire into a ladder." "I modernized it," Rustin replied. "You ruled with fear. I'll rule with policy. It's the same power, just better dressed." Alina's voice cut through the air. "You think burning men like him makes you different? You're just a cleaner shade of rot." Rustin smiled. "Idealism. It's why I kept you alive. The public loves redemption stories." He turned to Raffaello. "She planned to destroy you, you know. She called it mercy. You both misunderstand what survival means." Raffaello's hand tightened on the gun. "You talk too much." "Because I already won," Rustin said. "Your ghosts clinging to a dying world. After tonight, the headlines will say you tried to assassinate me. 2 bullets, 1 corpse, and the city finally absolved." Raffaello's finger brushed the trigger. "Then let's rewrite the ending." Rustin's hand drifted toward the drawer. Slow, deliberate, a glint of silver. "Don't," Raffaello warned. "Confession or a bullet," Rustin mocked. "You really haven't changed." The moment stretched thin. Elias stood behind Alina, shaking, eyes darting between them. Rustin's fingers brushed the gun. Raffaello fired first. The shot echoed across marble and glass. Rustin fell backward into the window, his blood painting the skyline crimson. The gala music below swelled in time with the crash of shattering glass as his body dropped into the night. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the crowd's applause, for the speech, for the illusion of order, thundered through the floor, masking the sound of their sins. Alina exhaled, trembling. "It's over." Raffaello looked down at the shattered glass, at the city glittering beyond. "No," he said quietly. "It's beginning again. But not with us." Elias stepped forward, his voice small but steady. "What happens now?" Raffaello holstered the gun. "Now we leave the ghosts behind." Outside, the river glimmered with the reflections of the ballroom's light. As they disappeared into the night, the city continued to dance, unaware that its new savior had fallen, and that the devils who built it had chosen, finally, to walk away. Dawn crawled across the skyline like a wound that refused to close. The city still burned in places, columns of smoke curling from the regatta district, the light of sirens pulsing like dying stars. Rain came thin and cold, washing the ash into the gutters, turning the streets into rivers of gray. Raffaello walked slowly, coat torn, one hand pressed against the side of his ribs where blood had dried hours ago. Beside him, Elias matched his pace, silent but steady, clutching the crumpled note that had started everything. The boy's shoes soaked through with every step, but he didn't complain. Behind them, the empire was gone. The Dambris name, once whispered like law, was dissolving into rumor and smoke. The men who had sworn loyalty scattered like leaves in the wind, and those who hadn't died were already rewriting history, pretending they had never known him. Alina was the first to vanish. She left before dawn, slipping into the chaos with nothing but a small duffel and a look that said everything words couldn't. "The world doesn't need kings anymore," she had told him, "just people willing to live with what they've done." He hadn't tried to stop her. Maybe because he knew she was right. Maybe because he didn't deserve to ask her to stay. Now it was just him and the boy, the ghost of his past walking beside the echo of his last mistake. They turned down an empty avenue lined with broken umbrellas and flashing lights. The rain fell harder, plastering Raffaello's hair to his forehead. He felt every heartbeat like a countdown. Somewhere ahead, a police siren wailed, closer this time, the sound of inevitability finding its mark. Elias looked up at him. "They're coming, aren't they?" "Yes." "What will you do?" Raffaello smiled faintly. "What I should have done a long time ago." The boy's hand tightened around the note. "I could tell them you saved me." "That's not what they'll want to hear." Elias's voice broke. "Then I'll lie." Raffaello stopped walking. The rain pooled around his boots. He turned and knelt so they were eye level. "No, Elias." "You tell them the truth. Tell them I built a kingdom out of fear. Tell them it burned because of a note a brave boy wrote." Elias blinked through tears. "You're not a monster." Raffaello's smile deepened, weary, distant, almost kind. "We're all monsters to someone." The sound of tires cut through the rain. 3 police cars slid to a stop at the far end of the street, doors flying open, shouts echoing. Flashlights slashed the dark, catching the glint of Raffaello's silver cufflink, the faint outline of a gun he no longer cared to reach for. He raised a hand, not in defiance, but in acceptance. "Stay behind me," he said. Elias obeyed, though his body trembled. "Raffaello Dambris!" The voice from the loudspeaker cracked through the rain. "Drop your weapon and get on your knees!" Raffaello glanced down at his sidearm, still holstered beneath his coat. Then, slowly, deliberately, he let it fall. The gun hit the pavement with a hollow clatter. His knees followed. He raised his hands, palms open to the storm. Water streamed down his face, cold enough to sting. Somewhere behind the lights, a camera clicked, history documenting the death of a man already gone. Elias watched from the curb, fists clenched around the note until the paper tore. "Don't hurt him," he shouted. "He didn't—" Raffaello turned his head slightly, meeting the boy's eyes one last time. The look wasn't fear or regret. It was something gentler, a silent promise carried in rain and ruin. "Smile," he mouthed. Then he did. The same tired, haunting smile from that night at the bar. The one that had turned a warning into a miracle. The smile that said, "It's all right now." Officers moved in, their boots splashing through puddles, voices blending with thunder. Raffaello didn't resist when they grabbed his arms. He barely felt it. For the first time in years, his body wasn't tense. His mind wasn't calculating. He simply existed. A man at the end of his story. Elias stepped forward as they led him away, rain blurring everything into streaks of gray and blue. The boy's voice broke into the downpour. "You told me mercy cuts deeper than revenge." Raffaello's reply came quiet but certain. "Then let it bleed." The sirens swallowed the rest. When the cars finally pulled away, Elias stood alone in the rain. The streetlights flickered weakly over the puddles, turning the city into a reflection of itself. He looked down and saw it, a silver knife lying half submerged in the gutter, washed clean by the storm. The blade caught the first glint of dawn, gleaming once before the water carried it away. He bent, picked up the note, now only shreds of paper, the ink fading into nothing. The words barely legible. "Smile. Leave right now." Elias folded the remains carefully and slipped them into his pocket. Then he looked toward the horizon, where the smoke from the regatta still drifted like ghosts refusing to rest. Behind him, the police lights dimmed, the city waking to its next illusion of peace. And as the boy began to walk, small against the sprawling ruins of empire, the rain fell harder, washing the streets clean of blood, of memory, of everything that once called itself power. The last king of crime was gone. Only the echo of a smile remained. If this story has your attention, hit that subscribe button and let us know where in the world you're watching from. Every story we tell connects the past to the present, and we'd love to have you with us for the next one.